G'day there, welcome to another episode of School of Elijah. My name's Mark Strother. This is the second episode of a new series that I'm doing on the life of a prophet, the Apostle John, where we're going to investigate his life, starting from when he met Jesus and all the way through to writing the book of Revelation, which is probably the greatest prophetic writings of the New Testament. So this is where it all began for John. Now, what we can find out using the writings of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, we can piece together the picture of who John was prior to following Jesus. He was a fisherman. We understand that it was a family business. He worked with his father. It was a commercial operation. They actually had hired workers, and there was a network where they would partner with Peter, who at the time was known as Simon. So there's James, his brother, John, and their father, Zebedee. They're working the Lake of Galilee. Now, I used to be a professional fisherman too. So I really have first-hand knowledge of the type of lifestyle that Simon and John and James, they would have been living. Typically, fishermen work hard. He would have been working a lot of late nights, going out. It's when the fish are out, that's when you want to be catching them. Now, some fish, they don't like the bright sunlight. They'll go down a little bit deeper. When the sun goes down, they'll come up, which is the time that you'll be able to catch them if you're using nets, which it seems like they were. So they would be fishing at night time. And fishermen, they're their own little group in the community, okay? Because working all night with fish, you're going to smell, okay? Let's be real. You're a bit of a smelly fisherman, okay? I know what it's like to be working all night on a scallop boat and we were out for like 2 weeks at a time. When we came in to stock up on supplies, a few of us went to Coles and we'd have a trolley and we'd just be piling in like heaps of, a roast meat and steaks and sausages and whatever we could throw in there. I think we had a shopping list that someone had written out for us and we were just filling this thing up. But people were like keeping their distance from us because we would have stank. And I could tell by the way people were distancing themselves. It was like, oh no, stay away from these smelly fishermen. And because you stay up all night, you're living on minimal sleep. It's not healthy, but when the fish are there, or in my case, when the scallops are there, it's not all year round. It's only for a few months. So you go all out to try and catch as much as what you can. The first year that I worked there in Shark Bay, the fishing regulations were that you had to stop fishing at 8 a.m, right? So you could drop your nets at, I think, 6 o'clock at night, and you could fish all night up until 8 a.m. Then a couple of years later, they changed the rules so that you could fish, because there was an abundance of scallops. It was like a bumper season. There were literally mountains of scallops on the bottom of the ocean. And you could put a net down for 3 or 4 minutes and it would be full of scallops. That's how many there were. And we were allowed to fish 24/7. We were just going all out. Our boat was just piled over, flowing with scallops. And we had to shuck every one of them, open them up, and take the roe off, and then put the nice little white scallop meat into a bucket, and do that all day and all night. So John would have been living on lack of sleep too, I believe, and there's a little bit of crazy in you when you do that. Like, it's just like, so they wouldn't have fit in particularly with the local synagogue. I got a feeling that they would have been told to sit in a corner if they ever came in because they smelled. But John and Simon and those that were fishermen get to see some of the most glorious sunrises when you've been working all night in the cold wind. It doesn't matter what the daytime temperature is. Over water is always cold at night. The wind just picks up that moisture off the ocean, or in this case, off the lake. And it's always cold, or worst thing just around 4 in the morning. But then you see a tiny glimpse, a tiny glimmer of colour on the horizon. It's a little tinge of purple or pink or orange. It's just a tiny little glimmer. It's a glimmer of hope. And then as you watch that sun rise, it's glorious. It's like a masterpiece of art when you see the clouds start to shine and glow with yellows and orange and pinks and purples and all the glorious colours of this sunrise. And they would have gone, yep, that's our God. That's our God who did that. Because that's what I used to do. I used to look at these sunrises and just be in awe of how amazing God is. When the seas are rough, there's danger. There would have been times when John was quoting, I think it's Psalm 107, those who go by the way of seas know the works of the Lord. It talks about going down into the depths and coming up and staggering around like drunken men and then crying out to the Lord, and he saves them. When I first started fishing, you wouldn't say I was walking with the Lord. I was a young kid. I was trying to find my way in the world, trying to work out what I believed. Ultimately good-hearted, like I didn't want to hurt people. I didn't want to do evil things, but I was easily influenced by those around me. And if those around me didn't believe in God, then I didn't think God was something to believe in. But, there was one night I remember, the fishing trawler has 2 metal poles, big, thick, they're called booms. They go out maybe, about 15 meters either side of the boat. And off that is a cable and these 2 boards. They're bigger than a door, a standard sized door. They're thick. They're about that thick, and they've got like shackles on them. They're chained to this cable. When they're lowered and the boat's moving forward, these boards hit the water and they spread, and the net is attached to these boards so that the net opens, right? And it gets dragged near the bottom, and whatever's on the bottom, there's a chain at the bottom of the net, and that sort of flicks up, and everything hits that chain and it'll flick up and try and swim away. So the scallops actually swims. So the chain hits them and they swim away, but they swim into the net. So, there was one time, okay, and you had to put the boards down via hydraulics, and I was in charge of putting the board down. It was rough, the waves, and you had to time it. If you put them down too quickly and they hit the water, then they could flip inside out, and then they're not going to open up the net. They're not going to spread because the chains are stopping them from spreading. Okay, they're the wrong way around. They have to be this way so they open up. And that's what happened to me. I remember when I dropped them, I thought they flipped, I wasn't sure. And as they were going down, it was hard to tell. I'm like, are they opening up? And for the next hour, I was praying. I wasn't walking with, I wouldn't say I even believed in God. Okay. If someone asked me, do you believe in God? Nah. I was too tough to believe in God. But in this moment of, could I be responsible for losing, hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of fish? I was like, oh, please God, let those boards have spread properly. Let the nets be opened. Because that's the only hope that I have, a miracle. Okay. If they actually flipped and they didn't open, I needed a miracle. Now, I don't know whether I got a miracle that night, but they came up okay. Okay. The net was full. They probably didn't flip. But the point that I'm making is situations out at sea will cause people who don't even believe in God to all of a sudden be crying out for help, okay? So even though John and Peter, James, they weren't big synagogue goers, they weren't spiritual men in the religious sense, but they were spiritual men in the real sense. They knew God through their interactions, watching the sunrise, crying out for his help in times of need, and seeing that he's faithful. That's the type of person I believe John was. If you're trying to get a picture of who John was before Jesus called him. So let's have a look. I think that Luke's version of events gives us the fullest account. I won't go through Mark and Matthew. They say similar things, but Luke gives a little bit more. I'm reading from Luke chapter 5, verse 1 to 11. It says, "One day, as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, with the people crowding around him and listening to the word of God, he saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, 'Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch.' Simon answered, 'Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets.' When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, 'Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man.' For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, 'Don't be afraid. From now on, you'll catch men.' So they pulled their boats up on the shore, left everything, and followed him." So this gives us a better picture, because if you read sort of Matthew and Mark's account, it's like Jesus walking along the beach. It's like, "Come follow me," and they leave everything. It's like, who's this mysterious man? Kind of doesn't make sense. It's like, who are you? Why should I follow you? But here it is where we understand. He's just shown them that he's the master fisherman. They were the experts. They hadn't caught anything all night. And then yet he can say, "Go drop your nets." And they get the biggest catch they've ever seen in their lives. This one catch probably set them up so that they could become full-time ministers. Peter was married. He needed to provide for his family. At least he could, put a lump of money on the table to his wife and say, hopefully this will last a while. I'm going to follow this guy, Jesus. I'm not working anymore. Okay? So that would be irresponsible. Yes, Jesus wants us to follow him with all of our heart, not to have ties with things that take us away from him. But he also wants us to be responsible. Mark 1 verse 20 says, "Without delay he called them and left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him." So James and John weren't just saying, "See you, Dad, we're out of here." No, they knew they could responsibly leave because the father had other workers that could take their place. He could employ other people to take the place of the sons. So we can take that away from this passage today, that John was drawn to Jesus because he knew Jesus was unlike any other man that he'd ever seen. No one had ever been able to give him that type of advice about fishing before. There was a buzz in the air, something happening spiritually in the region. I don't know whether these guys had taken the time to go out to the Jordan River where John the Baptist was, because it's a fair way from the Sea of Galilee. So I reckon they would have heard rumours. I don't think they actually went there. I could be wrong, but there was a buzz in the air, like something was happening. Thousands of people are flocking to get baptised by John the Baptist. Word would have got out that he's calling people to repent. They may have even heard of when Jesus got baptised and a voice came from heaven and said, "This is my beloved son." There would have been rumours of this new rabbi walking the streets and teaching. And then one day he's teaching at their beach. He asked them, "Simon, can I borrow your boat and teach out of this?" And they would have been in awe to finally hear the word, the Torah, the law being taught in a practical way that they could actually understand. And it meant something. It resonated in their hearts. So they were ready for a new life. When Jesus said, "Follow me," it was like, here's our chance. Here's our chance to learn about God from someone who can do miracles. Despite their rough edges as fishermen, believe me, they would have had a lot of rough edges. When Jesus called them, they left it all. What can we learn about this? God has a plan and a purpose for you, my friends. What he wants is your total surrender. I'm not talking about being reckless. It's like, oh, don't just sell everything and go to the Congo, and start preaching to people that don't even understand English. Like, that's not practical. But what God is wanting is your heart, wholly devoted to following after Him and His ways. That's the starting point. If you're serious about following the way, seeking after the truth, you can't half-heartedly do it. You can't sort of say, yeah, I'll do it once a week. This is my weekend hobby. You got to look for a way that you can make it your lifestyle. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I pray you get something out of this insight into the beginnings of John, the greatest prophet of the New Testament. And, I pray that if you are not in this wholeheartedly, if you're only half in this, if you're only dipping your toe in to see, know this, Jesus is real. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He can be trusted. You can surrender your heart to Him, to worship Him and Him alone, without fear of what's going to happen. He's going to have you back. But he's wanting to call people to follow Him down the path that leads to life. That may mean, as a ministering, as a prophet, as an apostle, as a pastor, as an evangelist, as a teacher. It may just mean that you're humbly, serving people day to day. Not everyone will be called to, write books or make videos or operate in one of those ministry gifts. But what He's after is that you're willing to wholeheartedly follow Him, seek after Him as He guides you into all truth. The truth will set you free. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Love you all. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe and like this video so the word can get out. I believe this is going to be a really powerful and important teaching series. And so I want it to go out to as many people as possible. So, just like the video. It doesn't cost you anything. Share it around, and I'll catch up with you in the next episode. God bless.